So Cherie, how does this work? I'm so glad you asked me that. That's why I'm here today. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to share with you all 3 personal stories of how I used intentionality throughout my life. The very first time I used intentionality, I didn't even know that I was using intentionality. I was a child. The second time I used intentionality was to get him.
Whoa. Yikes.
And the third time I used intentionality was to move here for him. Okay? So I'm going to start with, I'm just a girl from the South Bronx. Somebody called me Jenny from the block a little bit earlier, kind of like that chick. That is actually the apartment I grew up in. If I can figure it out. Well, if you see the first row of windows, the second floor window, that was my mother's bedroom. So the day she died in 2020. That is 167th Street and Sherman Avenue, 6.5 blocks away from Yankee Stadium. That's where I grew up. Now, from this picture, you can see that, it's a tenement, but you're only seeing a cropped out picture. To the left of that, to the right of that, when I was growing up in the 80s, were people standing in line for crack. Across the street from that was an abandoned building. People were on line for crack. There was an elementary school to the right, and people were standing on line for free cheese. Make sure you get on the right line. I was raised by a single mother. I have a brother, I have a sister, I am the oldest. I moved there when we were 9 years old. There's so much more to the story that led us to here, but I will say that when we got here, I was the happiest child in the world. That was my forever home. That elementary school would be the first school, actually, no, I'm sorry. The junior high school the next year would be the first school that I would attend from beginning to end. Up until that point, I did a grade in a different school. We moved around. My mother and father had a very tumultuous relationship, and she was always getting out. The surroundings that I grew up with did not tell little Cherie that she could be standing in front of you today. Those surroundings told me that I was going to be on crack, that I was going to be a teenage parent, that I was going to be in jail, maybe dead. I wasn't going to be married. Nothing in that neighborhood showed me anything positive. But thank God for my mother. I had a praying mother. And my mother told me at a really young age, she set the intention, at a really young age, she said, we live here because unfortunately right now I can't afford to move us out of here. But we will not adapt to this environment. You will go to school, you will speak well, you will dress well, you will walk with your head high. They're gonna know you're different. Amongst this rubble, you guys are gems. Know this. Know that you will not be on drugs. You will not be teenage parents. You will not go to jail. She was so intentional in teaching her children that at the age of 16, each one of us kids had to make a promise, pledge an oath to my mother. And it was those 3 exact things. First thing, you must promise that you will finish school. At that time, it was high school. I told my kids it has to get your master's because that's different. But it was high school at that time. The second one was, you will not become a teenage parent. That's hard. It's hard to be a teenage parent. And the third thing, you see what I look like, I'm an African-American woman, right? Sometimes the odds can be against us in certain circumstances, and she said to me, never do anything to give up your freedom. Never do anything to give up your freedom. That set the intention of my life. I promised my mother, my single mother, she did everything for us. How could I fail her? There were times as kids I made little mistakes or what have you, whatever, and I'm like, there's no way I can go home and tell my mother I did this. I promised her. And as the neighborhood got worse and things got crazy, I said to myself, I have to get out. Because I was that gem my mother told me. So much so, I'll share this. Coming home from school, I think I'm a junior in high school. Crack is rampant. It's 1986. And I feel like crack was actually made on my block. Like it was just, they discovered it, they started wrapping it up, and they started sending it out everywhere else. I mean, I really believe that we were the originators of rap and crack. I'm just telling you. Horrible, right? Mm-hmm. But I never forget this. I was coming home from school one day, and all the little wannabe drug dealers was outside, and this kid approaches me, and he shows me some bios. At the time, they were calling it New York. He's like, New York, New York, you want New York, New York, New York, you want New York, you want it, you want it, you want it. And I'm just like, I'm doing this. I'm trying to get, he's in my face, I'm trying to get away. By this time now, I had been on the block for a long time. My mother knew everybody knew us. We were those gems. Jose comes out. Call him, if you will, the drug pin of the block. Okay? Jose comes out, he grabs the kid. He goes, pushes him against the wall. Don't you ever talk to her. Don't you ever approach her. She's not that kind. Her brother, her sister, her mother, if I ever, you can finish the rest, right? Hood talk. I'm sorry, Mom, don't worry about it. I got you, boo. Come on, I'm gonna walk you home. You good, girl? I'm like, yeah, Jose, I'm good. Anybody know a little bit about hood life? Anybody know about how you have those conversations? Come on, let's keep this real. Come on now, hood life is real life. Okay, I can still go back home, walk midnight, and I can just make a whistle sound, and I can get an escort. It's hood life, right? So I knew that I was a gem. Fast forward, 30, went to school, did all those things, bought my first house. My mother never had a house. My father never had a house. I bought a house on Castle Hill where J-Lo is from, Jenny on the block, for real. I made it happen. My kids grew up in a neighborhood. They had a little picket fence, 2 cars in the garage. Each kid had their own room. Everybody had their own air conditioners. So like, there's no air conditioners in the room. So, okay? Backyard, basketball court in the backyard. All the kids were coming. We were that house. My son's playing varsity ball. I made it. Life was good. Life was good. I lived by intention, didn't know it. My mother did that. That's where it started. But because she told me that I was different, because she told me to forget about what I see, because she told me to keep going to school, that I deserved better. Maybe she didn't think she deserved better, but she knew that I deserved better. And I am proud to say that myself, my brother, and my sister are all tax-paying citizens. We weren't teenage parents. We all did some sort of schooling. And we're all here, coming out of that neighborhood. So many people did not make it out.